Great shows, or join the team at sport-social.co.uk.
Hello, welcome back to the Masterclass in Manchester United Tactical Podcast. I'm Haider Rubbani. Guys, I am back. I am on holiday here in Canada, so apologies, we are a little bit late. I'm joined by Rob, as always. Guys, as always, make sure you give us a follow on at TF Masterclass. Give me a follow on at Haider_Rubbani. Give Rob a follow on Twitter as well, at _Rob_B. Rob, that was shocking yesterday. Manchester United completely outplayed, completely outsmarted, couldn't get close to City, couldn't string two passes together. It's feeling like the end, Rob. We're seeing all the reports now. The club are very quiet on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. This can't continue for me. Manchester United shouldn't be losing 7-0 at home to Liverpool and City in any era, whether it's Sir Alex's era, whether it's Ole's era. It needs to change. The project is over. I think guys are ready for a change. Guys, let us know what you think in the comments. Really, really disappointing. You were there in the ground. A lot of boos. Felt like apathy, didn't it now, Rob?
It's over. It's basically the bottom dollar. The project has run its course under Ole. And, you know, as I said publicly yesterday, I don't think you should feel sorry for him. I don't think you should try and find any other reasons besides footballing ones for it. Because ultimately a manager's job is to get the team playing well and winning games. That's what you get judged on. Yes, at Manchester United, we're a political entity. There's always other things going on in the background, bubbling away. But I talked yesterday about the eye test. And I think all the good stuff that Ole's done at Manchester United over the few years, and I think he has done lots of good stuff behind the scenes, we've now just hit a brick wall where the playing personnel that he has do not suit what he wants to do. The system has collapsed. Every option he goes for, 5 at the back, 5 in midfield, 2 up top, 1 up top, 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, whatever. Throw whatever you want on the football pitch, whichever players you like, doesn't work. A very disappointing day against Manchester City, but unfortunately, not one iota of a surprise. Exactly as expected. The performance for me was just as bad as Liverpool, even though the result wasn't. And it showed that Manchester United are a lost entity and they need to refine their identity.
Rob, I'm going to be honest here now, and we will talk about the game, but something I do want to talk about is the almost, it feels like lowering of standards that we're seeing at the club at the moment. We shouldn't ever sit here and accept the way that Manchester United played yesterday at home. We were extremely passive. When we're going to look at the statistics, Manchester United had 1 shot on target, 5 in the whole game. We should never accept that. It doesn't matter who the manager is, Rob, because that's not Manchester United. Yesterday, what we saw was not the Manchester United way, which we've been talking about for the last couple of episodes, have we? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was trying to implement that, but he's not doing that right now. He has gone pragmatic. He has gone in save his job mode. And the sort of blind faith and loyalty needs to stop. We need to be a bit more objective, don't we, about what we're seeing in Manchester United. What we're seeing isn't good enough. And so when we are talking about the possible manager position and what's going to happen later on, we do need to talk about this without the emotion, don't we? Because there's too much emotion in the fan base. There's too much players, people like this player, people like this manager. We're all guilty of it. But that needs to change because it's unhealthy. And at the moment, with Manchester United, there's too many that love Ole, the player, but aren't able to distinguish that, the manager is a different entity and those standards still need to be kept.
Yeah, I must admit, I don't think that's representative of the wider fan base. I think you do have a core support for Ole, and that's fine, and you get that at every football club. I still get people tweeting me who love Mourinho so much that they remind me of tweets I made 7 years ago or whatever about something or the other. So these people do exist, but I don't think they're representative. So, Haider, I want to say that because I don't want this show to be about lip service to little clicks. And in football, you're always going to get little clicks. Just let them get on with it. I think when we talk about the manager, let's talk, as we said, about the game, what happened against Man City. And then what we will do, just to inform our audience, is that, yes, we are going to talk about Brendan Rodgers. So I see it in the comments. People are talking about it. Yes, Manchester United have had links with Brendan Rodgers for a while. This is not a new thing. Brendan Rodgers has always been high on the Glazers list. You know, when we talked about it a couple of weeks ago and I talked about Conte, I said really that kind of Conte and Rodgers were the yin and the yang choice. You know, the guy who's either won all the trophies, was at Chelsea, you know, the fiery Italian who wears his heart on his sleeve, or do you go for the more demure thinking man's coach who's had tons and tons of Premier League experience? So we will talk about that, but let's talk about Man City to start off with. What we saw kind of the setup was what we kind of expected. Now, before the game, I'd said that in our masterclass that we did in the studio, and I hope you all enjoyed that, we talked about the merits of 3-5-2 and the merits of 4-2-3-1. And we felt that Ole would go back to a 4-2-3-1 because he didn't really want to play Bailly. And what did he do? He surprised us. He played Bailly. He played 3 centre-backs. Bailly scores an own goal and gets substituted. So that didn't work. But you see here in the setup here, we've got now upon the graphic of the shape, City playing the kind of conventional 4-3-3, but obviously very fluid, doing lots of things with those 6 in the middle and with the fullbacks coming forward and even the centre-backs stepping out every now and then. With United, it wasn't really 3 at the back. It was 5 at the back. And I'll tell you that from someone who was sat in the stands looking along that back line for most of the game. In the first half, those front 5 could not have been in a more straight a line from Shaw to Maguire to Lindelof to Bailly to Wan-Bissaka. One straight line. Now, that was either out of fear that they were scared of City and sat back, or it was a tactic that they were told to sit more in a lower block. But it wasn't a low block. Why not? Because the midfield wasn't compact with the defense. So the midfield was kind of doing all sorts of different stuff, you know, running, chasing after shadows. And City's front 3 there of Jesus, Silva and Foden just kind of sat on the United defense. It was weird. It was a weird thing to see that Foden just could trot around wherever he wanted to go. So in terms of the shape of the system, first half was this with the Foden back. Then Bailly scores that horrible sliced own goal, which happens to you when you're not technically that good or you're in a bad moment. And then United are fighting fires. And I can't believe it just ended up 2-0 in the end because it felt like United was so out of control for the whole 90 minutes.
Rob, there's a comment here saying, you know, that in some ways it felt worse than Liverpool. They were toying with us. They made no subs, at least against Liverpool. He tried to win against City from the start. He raised a white flag. It felt like we set up to not get thrashed. I think that's the biggest issue for me. Something that I also want to pick out, Rob, is that, I mean, Guardiola utilized Cancelo and Walker beautifully, didn't he? I mean, look, Cancelo was a standout man, technically extremely good. We've spoken a bit about it before. But, you know, the midfield as well as where Manchester United, I mean, Man United had 3 in midfield there, but City were just, you know, they were dragging United's midfield from left to right. They were switching the play. It was easy for them. It was way too easy. And Ole didn't have anything to sort of counter that. And that was a problem for me. We were sitting there and at halftime, I mean, it felt honestly like attack versus defense. It was a training game. And that's when that's obviously I've been saying now for weeks that we need a change. But I was sitting there, Rob, and when your manager doesn't know what to do in that situation, it's never really a good sign. And when I'm going to bring up the statistics as well from the game, I mean, this is damning at home to Manchester City in a derby. Usually in a derby, you know, you show a little bit more bite and a bit of fight. There was none of that yesterday. 5 shots from Manchester United. I believe there was 1 on target. And that was the Ronaldo one from the 25th minute. Looking at Man City, it could have been 5-6-0 if it wasn't for David De Gea. 17 shots for them. Total domination. I mean, it's just not good enough, is it? It really isn't.
It's not good enough, but we need to kind of break down why it's not good enough. So this is the whole thing. So just saying there about United setting up to mitigate to kind of a bit of damage limitation. I don't really think that's what it was. I think United set up to try and play some counter-attack football, go back to what they used to know, play with a little bit of pace, try and find a way to get Ronaldo one-on-one with those defenders back there. But it didn't work because you were so messy. You know, back 5 was so flat and the midfield was so disorganized and the back 5 was so disorganized that what are you going to counter-attack on? When you look at these stats here, you know, United counter-attacks 0, you know, set pieces 1, open play 4. It's a complete catastrophic set of numbers for a team that's trying to dig itself out of the dirt, because that's where United are. So for Ole, losing 2-0 might not be as bad as losing 5-0, but a loss is a loss is a loss. and United cannot afford to rack up any losses. So I think this is kind of where we are with the Solskjaer tenure, is that it doesn't matter if you make yourself more difficult to beat, because if you still get beaten, losing 1-0 or 2-0 is as bad as losing 4 or 5-0, because you're not picking up points.
I mean, we've got to talk about the shape here. So if you're listening to this on Spotify, the shape, Rob, it was going around on half time. One of my good friends, Canton Collar, he actually tweeted it at half time, and it was, I think about 37 minutes in, it was abysmal, Rob. There was absolutely zero. I don't know what the shape was. United weren't compact. They weren't organised. And we saw that yesterday. I mean, looking on the left-hand side, Manchester United's shape, it was a 5 at the back. You can see that. You can see United were very bunched up in midfield. The biggest issue, and look, I'm myself and you disagree on Ronaldo. I don't want to make this about talking about Ronaldo because we've spoke about it in previous podcasts. But when United can't do what they were doing under Ole in the first couple of years against these bigger sides where they were successful, they're able to counter on these teams. You can't do that with Ronaldo as effectively as we were doing with the players before. That's not to say Ronaldo's not a great goal scorer. We have to find a different way. The manager has to find a different way to do that. He has to find a way to give more service to Ronaldo. But the fact is that was always Ole's go-to, wasn't it? The fallback is that, if we can't play possession base, we can hit them on the counter. We can destroy teams in transition. We don't even have that now this season. And when you haven't got that, there is absolutely no plan A or plan B. And we saw that yesterday, unfortunately.
Yeah, totally. But I do need to quickly address the Ronaldo in the room here, because I'm getting sick of hearing it non-stop about how this is an agenda against Cristiano, that it's this, that, and the other, and all this love for Ronaldo is fine. If people love Ronaldo, great, but he is part of this tactical breakdown. He is, no doubt. So let's look at the shape here, because we have to mention it. So when you look in the middle of that Manchester United map, and you can see how there's literally 5 players who, again, could all high-five each other, and Cristiano is one of them, slightly more advanced. And then you compare it to the Manchester City shape there, where they're beautifully spread out. That gives them the chance to pass the ball. It makes them push territory. It means they can get up and down the pitch. They can get behind the ball. They can get ahead of the ball. They can move off the ball. They can move on the ball. Man United can't do any of that because the shape is corrupt. It's corrupt from the top of the pitch, which is the striker position. And lo and behold, yes, I know Cristiano plays as a striker. So people have got to understand this is not about Cristiano. This is about the shape and the system and what positions are working and what positions are not. At the moment, no positions are working. When you look at the United shape there, just before we kind of jump on, the one bit there that does work, you can see, or is trying to work, is Luke Shaw's position. So Luke Shaw's average position, he's kind of doing what you want, which is on that halfway line, pushing forward. But you even saw there in the first half that he wasn't. He was stuck in that back 5, as was Wan-Bissaka. So the fullbacks there are trying to stretch the play. Yeah, that's their job. But look at the midfield. Look at it. It's a mess. That midfield, literally the wrong side of the halfway line for the whole game. And there's no connection between them and Ronaldo. No one's passing that ball out to Ronaldo, and you can't play counter-attack. So Cristiano is part of this story. And this is why I said about the solutions might well be post-Ronaldo solutions, because I don't see, even if you're a manager of any kind of acumen, that you can make a 4-2-3-1 work around Ronaldo. You might be able to get a 4-3-3 working, but you look at the players we've got, none of them really suit unlocking Ronaldo. That is a massive problem. You might have Sancho, you might have Van der Beek, you might have ball players, even Juan Mata, but it's the way Cristiano plays and what he needs as a support function to be the best version of himself.
See, we're going to disagree. I don't want to talk about Ronaldo too much in this, Rob, because there's so much more we can talk about. But what I will say is that I think you've got one of the greatest goal scorers there. You have lost. We've discussed it in the past. You have lost. Probably the ability to be as effective as possible on the counter. You have lost someone that's going to press, because when we do talk about Rangnick later, he is very much a pressing side. I mean, there was a good comment here from Larry saying, to quote Rangnick, you can't press a little bit, just like you can't be a little bit pregnant. We seem to do a little bit of everything but poorly. That's a fantastic quote. And then that's the reality with Manchester United. And this is something that's frustrating. We saw this against Liverpool, Rob, is that we didn't press as much yesterday at all, really. But when Manchester United do decide to suddenly press after, Ole said he wants United to be, the fittest side, the most hardworking side, we're near the bottom in that respect. But when you look at, where Manchester United do press, it is like one man goes towards the ball. It's like one man press, and then another man goes towards the ball. It's so easy to play against. But when you have got someone like Ronaldo, that pressing side is not, the pressing style that you want to play isn't going to work. So I think fans do need to think about that. Rob, the graphic on the right, we'll touch on this as well. as expected. We've known this for nearly 2 to 3 years. Manchester United have a very lopsided attack. That left-hand side is obviously much more fruitful, and it does a lot more for Manchester United. 57% of our attacks came down the left. Lo and behold, we sign a right winger, doesn't get a game, and you look at that right-hand side, non-existent. You can see that from the average positions map when you have a look at Wan-Bissaka, who's sitting deep in, as a right back rather than a wing back, and compare that to Manchester City. Look at the balance: 33% of their attacks came down the right, 42% down the left, 25% down the middle. Because they were so spread out and using the space so well, Rob, I mean, they were just passing the ball for fun. It felt like they had 12, 13 players on the pitch rather than 11.
Yeah, and the whole thing is that the whole project was based around the fact that over time United would become a pressing style team. Ole's spoken about it explicitly. That's what he wanted. He wanted to become a 4-3-3 side and maybe use 4-2-3-1 as the reserve formation. Now what we're seeing is that United can't do any of their formations well at all. So you just mentioned Ronaldo there and said, I don't want to make it about Ronaldo. It's really difficult to mention about pressing systems. We're talking about the one guy won't press. So you don't buy Ronaldo to then have a pressing system. So this is the kind of crutch of it. So that's an issue. You've got to then find ways of unlocking Cristiano. But then we saw yesterday that if you play a good team like City, who will play territory and play possession, it doesn't matter if you press or not. You might as well just all stand still on a football pitch. That's kind of what United are doing. They're going against better opponents. And I watched them, especially that front line. I watched Cristiano stand on the halfway line, hands on hip, while the game was happening around him. You can't do that in the modern game. If you want to be a good team, you've got to find a way to press. United certainly didn't press well last year, but there were signs that when they played teams like City last year, that they could press, that they had a system that allowed them to be up the pitch. You saw in this derby match, they had nothing, did they? No one was pressing because that wasn't the instruction. The instruction was to sit deep and kind of like fingers crossed, pray for the best.
But that's what I'm going to say, Rob, here. We've got the graphic now on screen of the heat map. Oh, look at Manchester City.
Shocking.
Absolutely shocking. I mean, look at Manchester City on the right and United on the left. But Rob, what I will say is you talked about last year we were pressing. It is coaching, Rob. It's what the instructions are. Manchester United have never been a pressing side on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And they do it sometimes they don't. Ole's a reactive manager. He's not a proactive one. We've seen that. There's a problem when your manager's changing the way we play, depending on who the opponent is. That shouldn't be the way that we set up. He should have his philosophy, and we should be going out and we should be imprinting that on the opposition. But when I have a look at this heat map, I mean, look, for me, Rob, if anyone can get Ronaldo to press, then they're a genius. And we'll see if that's possible with a manager who has, better tactics, better coaching, better philosophy. But when you look at this heat map here, Manchester City aren't just a fantastic possession-based side. They're supremely good. Well, they work harder than just about any other team in the league. And if you want to be the best team in the league, you can't just be good on the ball. You have to be good out of the ball as well, without the ball, out of possession. Manchester United are poor at both.
Yeah, absolutely. And Guardiola, his words were chosen very wisely yesterday because all week he's been asked a lot about Ronaldo. Would you have liked Ronaldo at your football club? Lots of these teasing questions. And of course, he's thrown them back and said, well, you have to ask Ronaldo or Manchester United about the true situation around that. And, when we look at the way City set up and play week to week to week, do you think that he would play any striker, it doesn't matter whether it's Ronaldo or not, who doesn't work in the press? The answer to that, of course, is no. Never, not in a million years. You can have a striker who scored 1,000 goals in his career and you don't start at Man City, and you probably don't start at Liverpool either. So this is the issue with United about becoming this ballers football club of like having individual talent and thinking you can rely on it. You just said there, can you get a coach that makes Ronaldo press? No, he's 36. He's never going to press. He's not going to change. So what that means is that you have to change. You look at the heat map here, you can see how City exploit that part of the pitch, just the other side of the halfway line, and they play in that area. That's where they live. That's where they stick their flag in the soil and they say, we own this territory. You look at Man United, none of that. Zero. The biggest bit of heat there is David De Gea. Is sick. So, we can blame Ole because he's got to take responsibility for this. But there's also there's something on the players about trying to make systems work. And what we're seeing is that very basic systems at like 4-2-3-1, they've completely forgotten how to play. They can't play it. They don't feel confident. They go to 5 at the back. they're okay sitting deep, but then they can't counter-attack because they've got a striker up top that you can't play counter with. And then maybe your fastest player like Marcus Rashford or in those straight line runs, you look at a game like this, and this was a game to start Marcus in. And of course, Greenwood started and maybe he's there on merit. But if you're playing this system, you want that straight line speed. So I think Ole's getting the selection wrong, the system's wrong, but the players are really, really not helping any of it.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. As always, before, if you haven't done it already, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share with all your friends as well. We want to get this podcast out to as many people. We want to grow this masterclass family. We've got so much great content as well. There'll be more studio stuff. But Rob, look, and we'll bring out another heat map here. So if you're listening to this as well on Spotify, what we have here is we have Jesus, Bernardo, and Foden's heat map. And we compare that to Greenwood, Ronaldo, and Bruno. Obviously, United are playing a 5-3-2, Rob, more. So it was more difficult to, United didn't have three across the front, although obviously when we did change to 4-2-3 on the second half, we will talk about that. That did change, but look at the difference, Rob. I mean, United don't even have a heat map from these three players. It's a serious problem. It's a coaching issue for me, Rob. These players, there's no way that these players can't press the way Manchester City's players can. They're not coached to do it. They're not. It's not repetitive behaviors in training. It's not all these tactics, and that's the problem, Rob. And you're looking at here in Manchester City. I mean, look, Jesus, Bernardo, and Foden. They didn't play with a striker. This is the other thing as well, Rob, is that no manager has the perfect squad. Pep Guardiola doesn't have the perfect squad. He doesn't have a striker really. Jesus is playing on the right. Chelsea, for example, they don't have the perfect squad. They have deficiencies in defense. We have a look at Klopp as well. They have lack of depth, but they're so well drilled that a top manager should be able to mask that. Manchester United don't have a midfield. We know the issues with that. They still need to upgrade that. I don't think they win the title, even without a midfield. But they should be doing much better than what we're seeing right now. A manager should be able to mask that. And looking at this as well, how hard the front lines are working, it's just chalk and cheese, Rob. It's just not good enough. I don't want to sit here and say the difference between United and City was hard work, because it's not. There was so much more to it. It was training and coaching and the way they were drilled, footballing IQ, etc. But this is the basics. We don't work hard enough, and if you don't work hard enough as a bare minimum, you're not going to win football matches.
I'm going to agree with part of what you said. Like, I think that if you decide to play a pressing style, you need to drill it into your team, and that needs to be the philosophy of the football club. That whoever's playing along that front line, you run. Yeah, first prerequisite of football: run, please. You don't walk, you don't stand still. There's a lot of joggers in this Man United team, and a lot of players, whether they are worldy Ballon d'Or winners, who just want to stand still and want to do all the flashy bits because that's what they want to do. It's how they've played their career. When you look at this kind of trident between Greenwood, Ronaldo and Bruno and compare it to Jesus, Bernardo and Foden, it is embarrassing. Embarrassing. I would rather take one Phil Foden than three Ronaldos, right? Now, I'm not saying that to be a kind of hot take. I'm saying that because if you want your system to work, you need players that work in the system. So you can't have a system where these players won't play it. So the issue is that you can't really tell Greenwood, Ronaldo and Bruno to effectively press, because that's not really their game. You could teach it to them every day of the week, 6 hours a day in training, and you're still not going to get an effective press as Jesus, Bernardo and Foden. Why is that? Because City have chosen those three players to go and do that job because that's what they're good at. It's like saying, let me go and get Harry Maguire and I'll just do straight line sprints with him. It's not going to work, is it? He's slow. So it's no point there's a coaching issue. You're totally right. I'm with you on that. And United showed last year that when we played Man City, that we pressed them high up the pitch and we beat them. Yeah, we beat them. A team that was known for pressing, we outpressed them. We won those games. But we've gone from that. 15 games into the season, we bring Ronaldo into the football club and we become a ballers football club. Individual talent. This is how we're going to win it. We're going to get late goals. It's going to be the United way. Goals from the edge of the area. Brilliant finishing. Even the one chance we had was a difficult chance for Cristiano and he hit the target. But after that, United created nothing. And we all stood there. And one of the things that I heard over and over again, and this is the Foden side of it, is you look at Phil Foden and people were like, he's not Lionel Messi, but he looks like Messi because he's playing in those channels and he's checking in and out. He's playing the game up here. United players do not play the game up here. They do a bit of jogging. I've got to close this position down. I'm the striker, so I've got to stand in this bit. This is my position. Bruno Fernandes runs around everywhere, gets upset, throws his hands around. It's all conjecture. It's rubbish. It's not football. So Man City are a proper football team. with a coach playing proper football, and we've become a team that wants to be a proper football team, but just refuses to actually do the work.
But Rob, I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying. But this comes from the fact that you're looking at the two coaches. Guardiola is a fantastic tactician, Rob. He's imprinting that on his players. Phil Foden would not be. He's a fantastic talent, but that footballing IQ, that knowing when to pass, when to go, knowing which areas of the pitch you have to take up, knowing when to press, when not to, all these sort of things, that comes from coaching. That's what they're practicing week in, week out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a good question here. And Manchester United, Rob, I'm fully convinced. Yes, United have got some players. I agree with you that aren't showing enough, and that should be pointed out. But you've put Bruno Fernandes into Liverpool's side. He would be a fantastic player. He'd be a better player than we're seeing right now. You put Mason Greenwood, into City. It's not that City, Greenwood and Bruno can't press. It's what they're being coached to. They don't know whether we should press or we should not, because it's not like from one week we press and another week we don't press. There's no uniformity with Manchester United's tactics and their systems. Ollie's chopping and changing. We've now gone to 5 at the back or 3 at the back. Why? Because it worked in one game. You come back into this and it doesn't work. So, and then we did go to a 4-2-3-1. Rob, I want to bring up this question here. Which was from Philip saying, do we have an abundance of players with low game IQ, or is this pure coaching? I don't think United have got players of low IQ. There are a few. I mean, look, we saw there are some players that shouldn't be playing. Eric Bailly, I don't see the hype. I'm sorry, around Eric Bailly. He has one good game and suddenly people think he's the answer. He's not the answer. He's been at the club for 4 years. But then you've got players like Mason Greenwood, Sancho, Rashford. I mean, that front three, Rob, let's talk about talent alone. There's no reason why they can't press. Sancho did it at Dortmund. It's the fact of the matter is they're not being coached well enough to press, to pass, all of these sort of things. And at the end of the day, Rob, the common denominator for me is the manager, and there has to be a change.
Yes, of course. And there's nothing on this show and what we've said, whether it be tweets on YouTube, not on your YouTube, whatever, that goes away from that fact. I think where everything differs is the reasons why. Because Ole watches these guys and tells them what to do in training and pushes them and wants them to do certain things. But the big difference between that Greenwood, Ronaldo, Bruno thing there and Jesus, Bernardo and Foden is that there is no I in team. Yeah, those 3 for City work for the team. Yeah, they're all individually talented players. They can all do certain things, but none of them are kind of right on the edge of superstar status. United, on the other hand, have got Ronaldo and Bruno, who are kind of working that superstar way and literally cannot pass the ball to each other, Haider. So that's on them. That partly is on them. And there's no way that you could put Greenwood, Ronaldo and Bruno in City's team and that they would press. They wouldn't. They wouldn't be able to do it in the way that Guardiola likes to do it. That's why you pick players for your system, not systems for your players. So this is a part of the issue, is that United this year are picking systems to try and unlock talent, unlock individual players. Of course, it's our striker. This is how the kind of methodology has gone about now in the last kind of 6, 7, 8 weeks. And I think this is why we've seen a collapse in results. But unfortunately, United fans are always going to play whataboutry because they like certain players and don't like other players. And this is a problem because coaches can't do that, you see. Coaches will have players that they trust, but they want to just put out a team that wins. That's what coaches want to do. And you can see with Ole now that he's in a fog, he's in a mist. He doesn't know what team to put out anymore. And this is why he'll lose his job, because he can't find the way. But if you brought Guardiola to United tomorrow, United wouldn't magically press. It takes 6 months to get your team to press, and you have to retrain players' brains. The fact that Man United players are jogging is an issue, but that's because they've been told to play a static system. So they're just working in little zones. Like I just said there, I'm the striker. I work in this tiny triangle. So I just wait for the ball. If you wait for the ball in the Premier League, you lose games. It's just as simple as that. So this is an acute tactical breakdown that's a responsibility of the manager, but also the players themselves are not doing the manager any favours at all.
Rob, there's a good question here, Rob. From Miles saying Rob is spot on, but this comes back to what is the ethos of the football club. So what we've been saying, Rob, trying to hark back and copy the Sir Alex way, the United way. United need to look forward now. They need to stop trying to replicate what's in the past, take the values and the ethos of the club, and they need to move forward. They need to modernize. Rob, we're going to move on to Ralph Rangnick. And guys, as I said, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this with all your friends, share this with all your family. You want to get this podcast out to as many people as possible. So Rob, we'll start by saying, reportedly, I'm just looking now on Twitter, and I don't know who Rudy Galletti is. He works for Calcio Mercato. I'm not sure the sort of the standard of the source here, but reportedly Rodgers has reached an agreement in principle with Manchester United. However, the Leicester manager would like to wait until the end of the season to sit on the Manchester United bench. The Red Devils are pushing for now, but Leicester City at now disagree. What have you heard regarding this? What is it a case of Rodgers being the number one target? I mean, it would marry up with the idea that he is, because we had Antonio Conte, who a lot of fans wanted, myself included. Obviously, he's now at Tottenham. It looks like it's pointing towards Brendan Rodgers. Can you see Manchester United paying that money, though? Because if you're going to have to sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it's about $7.5 million. You're looking at Rodgers, 20 million plus. These owners don't like to spend money in that way. So, how convincing are those reports? And is Rodgers the number one target?
Yeah, I said last week that Rodgers was the number one target, a de facto target for the Glazers in terms of continuing their project and what they see that they want to do with United. And you get a lot of fans again going, they didn't want Conte because Conte's a moaner, Conte's a squealer, Conte challenges boards. And we kind of demystified a lot of that last week, didn't we? We kind of said that's not what Antonio Conte is at all. He's passionate, but he generally works well with owners. He gets the money he needs for it. He gets the players he wants, and he's a very communicative bloke. That's how he works. That's not a problem. I don't think United were looking at Conte in that way. He was never kind of the top target, though he was the favourite for a little bit while in terms of the bookies. I think with Brendan Rodgers and with Rangnick is that they are similar coaches in many ways, maybe not in philosophy, but how they structure their football teams and their football clubs. So let's just talk a little bit about Rodgers before we jump into Rangnick completely. The fact with Brendan Rodgers is that he does want to go to a bigger club. We've heard this before. He's kind of hinted it before. He's always said that he would like to be able to go to a club of Liverpool stature again, round that kind of ilk. Manchester United are one of those clubs. I think he always did feel that United would not be an option for him simply because he was Liverpool manager once. For me, I said last week that Conte and Rodgers were my two favourites because they were kind of the two separate ends of the spectrum, and United were digging around Rodgers last week. We know this. It's not a surprise. So today, obviously, the reports are saying that there is some kind of agreement in place. And I think that will now kind of start to unfold. We do know that Brendan Rodgers doesn't want to leave Leicester immediately. He would like to kind of see it out to the end of the season. I don't know if that's to do with clauses. Quite often, clauses only kick in for a month in the summer. That's quite a lot of contracts are based around that, the summer clause of June or July. And that means you get someone cheaper. Yeah, there's less issues. So that might be the case. That's just speculation. But when you look at Rangnick, he is a real left field choice. Now, United were in for him before. They had spoken to him previously, and it was around the time that they were looking at moving on Jose Mourinho. He's left field because he just simply isn't, I use this word all the time in football, like sexy enough for the fan base. There's going to be a lot of United fans who look at this guy and go, who? They haven't got a clue who he is. So he is a little bit of a kind of godfather figure in German football. Tuchel and Nagelsmann look up to him in terms of their systems and cite him as one of their favorite coaches, someone that they're kind of studied and taken his methods. He's obviously moved on to more director of football roles and building football clubs. So I don't think Manchester United would be looking at bringing him in as that, because we have one in Murto. I don't think Murto's going anywhere soon, even if Solskjaer gets sacked. But he is a great coach. He fixes systems. He gets players drilled. Do I think, he plays one at top sometimes. Do I think he'd play Ronaldo in that system? No, because he doesn't press. So I don't know how you fix that. That's a difficult thing. But he is a really, really great coach. And I think that if you're looking for someone to fix a tactical issue, you need to go and get a tactician. I've said this over and over again. And he definitely sits in that ballpark. I think he'd come to England, and I think he'd be a kind of quiet success. People talk about Ten Hag, and a lot of those people that talk about Ten Hag are not real big Ajax fans. They don't watch a lot of Ajax. They kind of just like him because he is a tactical name, where this guy might actually be the tactician that you need.
I tweeted about this, Rob, that Rangnick is probably the manager of the Manchester United should be going for right now? Because as you said, look, he's a great builder of clubs. He's a great tactician. When you look at his statistics here, I mean, Hoffenheim aren't traditionally, seen as a club who, who are one of the biggest in Germany. They had Rangnick, and they also had Nagelsmann, and Nagelsmann did great over there. He made them into a Champions League club, fantastic job. And then he built the sort of the Red Bull brand, didn't he? Really, Rangnick has been so pivotal in that. You see all these fantastic managers. Again, you saw Nagelsmann there as well, someone that I think every fan in the world rates. He's a fantastic prospect. Jesse Marsch is very good as well. But when you're looking, I mean, look at the points per match when he was at Leipzig. 1.92. It's a great record. When I have a look at the options out there at the moment, with Conte off the table, I'm not 100% convinced on Rodgers, Rob. And I think a lot of people are feeling the same. That can he take that step up to challenge with the likes of Guardiola, with Klopp, with Tuchel, and now you've got Antonio Conte. I'm not 100% convinced. But what United need right now, Rob, is they need a style of play. They need someone to come in and basically build that, to basically coach this squad into it, because there's talent in there. And then maybe 18 months down the line, you go and give it to someone who is a bit more, probably a bigger name. You could maybe give it to a Ten Hag, Mancini, Enrique when the World Cup is over. I think that's what the club should be doing. I'm not convinced the club are that well, what's the word? Prepared. They don't have a clue what they're doing after. So that's what I would be looking to do. I'm not 100% convinced that Rodgers is the right answer. But if he comes in, Robert, he will be and definitely improve on what we're seeing right now. At least United will be more well drilled. But let's talk about Rangnick's tactics. So you're looking at the system here, his 4-4-2 formation. He's the team in white. He likes to play with narrow wingers. It does go to a 4-2-2-2 as well. I think one of the biggest things, Rob, though, is that the team, it's about the unit, isn't it? With someone like Rangnick, it's not about the individuals. Right now, Manchester United have a lot of good individuals, with a lot of talent. What are your thoughts on this as well? Because there are going to be, if let's say he does come in, there are going to be a lot of players that will be cast aside. There will be a lot of players, bigger names, that will probably be dropped. I'm not sure fans are ready for that, if I'm honest with you. There's a lot of allegiances to certain players in the fan base, which needs to stop. But Rangnick would come in and do what's best for the unit rather than the individual.
Stop supporting players, start supporting your team. First thing I want to say to any United fan watching this, everyone has favourites, but if you get a guy coming like Rangnick into your team, you've got to understand that he needs to build the club in his image. So that's what that happens. That's why even when you bring in a Van Gaal or Mourinho, it's the same thing. You've got to let them build the club in their image. And yes, they may then take isms from Manchester United, isms from the past. That's okay. So I think when you look at Rangnick, the thing is with him is that stylistically, he will make Manchester United a better team. We will lose less games. We will win more games. We'll be more competitive, and he'll find a way. And there won't be this whole kind of shift towards populism in footballers. I'll say one thing about Donny van de Beek just quickly as well. Just had it in. Obviously, he got on the pitch yesterday, and the United fans sang his name for like 20 minutes while he was warming up, and it's weird. It's weird because it's all pushing against not wanting United to play good football, but just like individuals and
Rob,
football teams.
Can I make a point on this actually? Because I saw a tweet about this. Because I was thinking, were they singing "Ollie's at the wheel"? The City fans, I wasn't quite sure. Because for me, I thought that was strange as well.
City fans were, yeah,
yeah, but it's because it was the same tune, right? Ollie's at the wheel, and then Donny van de Beek. But what I will say about it is, I saw a tweet and it made me think, and I want to push this towards you and the listeners as well. Give your opinion on this. But someone tweeted this, I can't remember who it was, saying that this is the closest United fan base we're getting almost to saying Ollie out. Because United fans are never going to sing Ollie out, are they? But to sing Donny van de Beek's name, someone who's played hardly any minutes, who's one of the players who has been almost cast aside by Ollie, it was almost a defiance to support the player over the manager. I mean, that's what I saw, and I kind of agreed with that idea. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think partially that is the way, yeah, because the United fans, they did boo at halftime and boo at full time, but it wasn't really particularly loud or a big deal. And yeah, they were singing for Donny van de Beek. Now, it's not a weird thing to sing for a substitute. They warm up on that side by the tunnel all the time. So it's in front of the Stretford end. So it tends to be in front of the singing section. So they'll sing someone's name. That's not a big problem. But you could see that with Donny van de Beek, there is this kind of feather to kind of get him into the game, get him on the pitch, because of what we're seeing is so bad. So I think it's the same for Jadon Sancho. But what I'm trying to say is that populism doesn't work in football. Yeah, if you like an individual, fair enough. but individuals do not make a team. It doesn't get you to where you want to be. There can sometimes be the missing piece. So, like, you might find that Donny is that missing piece, but he came on and played in a double pivot in front of the back four. And he came on, I stood there and I just laughed. I went, well, we know this doesn't work. So here we are now trying it for the 10th time. And it's still not going to work. And it didn't really work. He was very deep. I was surprised he didn't come on in an attacking function when you're 2-0 down. So I just think that that's part of it. I do think that the fan base at Old Trafford, a lot of people said to me yesterday, season ticket holders, were quite frank and said, we're not coming. We're not going to watch this anymore. So I think as soon as that happens and empty seats happen, because that's what happened with Mourinho, that's when the board get itchy feet. They see empty seats. They see that fans are protesting with their feet. And you're right, there is a little bit of derision in the fan base where they're singing for Donny van der Beek over singing for the football club. And it's not a good look. It really isn't a good look. Like I think if you go to games, go and support the team, sing for the team, and then you can have your opinions. You know, we have our opinions on this show and people have their opinions on social media. I think you've got to find a way to make Manchester United a team again and a football club. A club means everyone.
And Rob, as we are doing the show, it is being reported that Aston Villa have sacked Dean Smith, so Norwich have sacked Daniel Farke as well. So
no surprise.
No surprises there. I think you're seeing the same thing that Dean Smith, he's struggling to replace Grealish. Also, obviously, spent a lot of money, and there's some quality players in that squad. Hasn't found the right balance yet. I did find, some of it a little bit strange. I did find it strange Danny Ings going there when they've got Watkins, but no surprises there. Now it's just Manchester United. So I really, honestly, Rob, I'm sitting here right now, I don't think United are going to sack Ole, and I don't know how it can get worse than this. But
you're saying that because of a feeling. Yeah, I'll say this: it's sacking season, Haider. Yeah, you get to this point of the season and clubs start to sack managers because results don't reflect what they want to do. The things with the Glazers is that, I said populism doesn't work. They are populists. That's what they do. So as soon as this looks like a bad narrative on them, they're going to cut that manager's throat quickly. So especially when if they've talked to Rodgers and they can agree with Rodgers and say, even if Rodgers comes end of the season, they can sack Ole now and say, Michael Carrick, you're going to take the job for 6 months or 4 months or something like that. And Brendan will come in next season. So there is that side of it. And I think people say they feel that the Glazers won't sack Ole. Unfortunately, I must admit, I don't see where that comes from, because people said that about Mourinho. They won't sack Mourinho, give him a big contract. They can't sack one of the greatest managers of all time. They sacked him. They will sack a manager. They are ruthless owners.
We shall see, Rob. Watch this space. But let's go back to Rangnick here. And we're going to talk about the pressing. And look, he is, he's almost the king of Gengen pressing. He is the one that has inspired a whole load of managers. I saw a good comment there. It's not just Tuchel and Nagelsmann. I believe Klopp's in there. Jesse Marsh, we mentioned him earlier. You've got Ralph Hasenhüttl at Southampton as well. But I think one of the key things here, Rob, and we're going to do a Rangnick podcast. We're going to do a Ten Hag one later on as well, guys. So make sure you subscribe so that you keep up to date, turn those notifications on. But when you're having a look here, Rob, it's how, out of possession, how well organized his sides are. They look to press early and higher up the pitch. That is very, very key. You see that with Klopp's side, you see that with Guardiola's side. Manchester United don't do that at all at the moment. How is that transition going to be for this side then, Rob? Because, we've mentioned it a lot, United don't press enough. I think they've got the players to do that. It's just about changing the mindset and training them to do that. One of the key things here is that, setting up pressing traps. That's a very basic thing. There are triggers when you press as a team. Manchester United don't do any of that right now. But, he does also look to play sometimes 4-3-3 as well. So that's something that fans do want to see. Look, the Ronaldo question does come up again, doesn't it? When you want to play a pressing system like this, it's going to be difficult to see where he fits in.
Well, Rangnick is the king of the press and trap. That's what he does. That's kind of what he formulated in his teams and what's been kind of eked out through his tactics to other coaches over a long period of time. You can't play Ronaldo in a press and trap. You can't. And you just said there you think United have got the players to go and press. Who? I don't think any of them are good enough at pressing. You've got centre-backs who are slow, right, who can't do that, who only can hold lines. You've got full-backs that when they're allowed to go and play up the pitch, they're good. They can go and do that, but don't particularly go up and down well. You've got a functional midfield who can chase, do lots of leg running, but are not particularly intelligent. We talk about McFred all the time, about the kind of nuances of the game. And you've got Bruno Fernandes, who does like to run around a lot, but also likes to huff and puff a lot. So I don't think any of this Man United team is particularly suited to a press and trap system. I don't think this Man United team could do, say, what Chelsea does. I don't think they can do what Liverpool do, and I don't think they could do what City do. So it would be up to Rangnick, or even if it was Brendan Rodgers, who both like to play pressing systems and have different shapes, but will press higher up the pitch and be more aggressive, to find ways of doing it and then adding. So that was what you'd have to do. You wouldn't fix it on day one, Haider, but you might fix it in a year, and you might go into the next two transfer markets and have very specific types of players you want. So not superstars, but players who play the press and trap. And I think that's what you'd have to commit to. So this Man United team is not suited to pressing, which is why they don't press. It's kind of the be all and end all of it. They try and be functional because they're not very good. They're a bunch of joggers. They all jog. They all want to jog because they want ball to feet, and then they want to turn and do a little trick and find a way. Marcus is the same. You sign up with Mason Greenwood, wants to come in on his left. Ronaldo does that. And then you've got Bruno, just looks lost around all of them. Like, what's supposed to be happening here? I think Bruno would be all right in a pressing system, but I think the rest of them would find it difficult. I think Sancho would be all right in a pressing system. When you look at this shape, I think he's got much more energy about him than I think people give him credit. And you saw what he does at Dortmund. He can join those dots. But then there's a whole bunch of them where I do think, would you be able to do that week in, week out? Michael Owen said one thing after the game yesterday, and he talked about Liverpool. And he said about when Klopp went there and formulated it, he formulated that pressing system. And some of them were really good at it, and some of them weren't very good. And he weeded them out quickly. The ones that weren't good at it, gone out the football club. What Ole's had to do, because I think this is partly down to the owners, is that the players he's got, he's kind of been told, you need to win with these players. And now he can't find the system to make that work. So that is an issue. So it'd be an issue for any new manager coming in, that they would have to put their kind of flag in the ground and say, we need to change stuff. And, so we'll look at kind of more of his kind of acute tactics here, but it's not kind of rocket science, but lots of players are just not good at the press.
I somewhat agree. We'll see who is and who isn't. There's a good comment here saying that, when Rangnick does come in, it might be a tough first few months, some injuries. Naturally, when you come from not pressing at all and then changing your
100%.
style completely, this is a great comment. But over summer, he'll change how we look.
Yeah.
What I will say though, Rob, is that in my opinion, the likes of, let's say, Mason, Rashford, whatever, these sort of players, on the fact that they haven't been coached how to do it. I don't think any player. Well, there are some players that can't do it physically, yes, but I'm looking at a squad, and I think we should be on the level playing field of, we don't know whether they can or can't just because they've never done it before. But, there's young players here that do have energy, that do have, that need to be coached and do need to be drilled. And I think it's too early to say whether a player can or can't, in my opinion.
Okay, fair enough. But I've seen enough of Man United try and press over 3 years, Haider. There's been plenty of games where they've tried to press and it hasn't worked. So this is the whole point of it, is that there's a reason why Ole doesn't press, is because his players are not particularly good at it. Now, you're right. The coach has to get it into those players to do it. The issue, I think, here is, like, say Rangnick comes in and is given 6 months to try and create a pressing team. 6 months might not be long enough. Might take a year. But Man United fans are so impatient, they'll be calling for his head after day 2. So this is the problem with our football club. And I think this is kind of where the toxicity seeps through from the fan base into the team. So I'm not saying that Mason Greenwood can't press. I'm saying that he probably on day 1 won't be able to do what this manager would like him to do. And here we are months on, still talking about repetitive issues. I want to see Mason Greenwood in the team. Yeah, I want to see a front three on Mason Greenwood, Rashford and Sancho. That is your now, that's your present, that's your future. Go and make it happen. Go and find a system that makes that work. And a pressing system with them will work. A 4-3-3 press, first wave, second wave, they will work together. Those 3 boys up top will be able to press a defence. Now, it doesn't work with Ole because Ole hasn't set the rest of the team up to do that, Haider. So I'm not saying that another manager can't do it, but there are big reasons why Ole hasn't done that. Ole is a conservative coach, and this is why he is stuck with this. And he's now stuck having to play 2 guys at the top end of the pitch that the football club will demand play because they're the biggest earners at the football club, and one of them's the biggest shirt seller. Simple.
Rob, the reason why United aren't doing it is because the manager isn't a good enough coach to coach that into the sides. That's in my opinion. I understand I agree with the Ronaldo point, but we're comparing someone, for example, like Rangnick, who is who is the king of game pressing, and we're saying to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he doesn't do that. Oh well, the players can't do it because Ole's tried to coach into them. I'm not looking at the players. I'm looking at Ole and being like, no, I don't think that's not one, what he wants to do. Two, he's shown that he's not a very good coach at drilling that into his team. So I want to see the best guy come in to see if the players can do it. And that's where I'm sitting, rather than saying the players can't do that.
I'm only taking my opinion on it from what I've seen, as kind of looking at it, the nuances of the stats and stuff like that about what a player does within his own skin on a football pitch. That's the way I look at it. You said there, maybe Cristiano will get coached and coach and he'll be able to press. He ain't going to press. He's never going to press. It's not what he does. He's never done it in his whole career. So it ain't going to start tomorrow with someone new. It just isn't. And there are some players that are better suited to the press, and some wasn't. So when Liverpool were looking for an extra piece for their press up top, because Firmino didn't score as many goals but was a brilliant false nine, they went and got Jota, because Jota will do the press. He might not be the best player in the world. He might not be everyone's pick, but he can play through the centre. He can be a false nine. He can play on the left. He can play behind the strike, and he can press. So this is why that you do it. This is how you pick a team, Haider. So how you shape it. So there are United players that will get round it and will find a way, and then there's other players that won't. Unfortunately for United, you might find, or for United fans, you might find someone like McTominay is better at the press than other midfielders, like say Donny van der Beek. And Rangnick might come in and go, he's the guy I'm playing because he will press that zone. So he will do that press for me. And United fans, what will they do, Haider? They'll go batshit crazy. So this is the problem, is that it's not about fashion. This is about football. It's about tactics. So we will see. It's a wait and see thing. And we have to bring in a coach that wants to do those things. And we need a tactician. There's no doubt about it. That is the next port of call. You could be a Rodgers. You could be a Rangnick. The problem is, you see with Zidane, is that Zidane is the Galactico option. Like they might go for Zidane because of the Ronaldo link, because of the Varane link, because of the Pogba link. But he might not be the right guy because he's not the greatest tactician. Good manager, won trophies. You can't say boo to Zidane about all of that stuff. But I think Man United now need an acute coach who's going to say, for 1 year, we are going to play pressing football. And if you can do it, you stay. And if you can't do it, whether you're Ronaldo or, Ronaldo's best mate, or Aaron Wan-Bissaka, or even the goalkeeper, if you cannot do what I want you to do, then you will be sold and you will leave the football club. And we don't play football for ego. We play football to win.
Yeah, no, spot on. Rob, final word now. What's going to happen with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Let's finish on that. What have you heard? Is he going to get sacked, in the next week or so? And who do you think is the most likely replacement?
I think he's going to get sacked. I don't want to put a timescale on it because I think with the Glazers, it's really, really difficult to decide that. There's been plenty of rumblings that Manchester United are talking to people. They're talking to agents. I've said this on the show a few times. That continues. I can't kind of corroborate the Rodgers story that he's agreed anything with United because that might be a bit of a red herring. But I do know that Man United really like Brendan Rodgers, and the most important thing is that Joel Glazer is going to pick a coach in that style, someone like Rodgers who's got kind of Premier League experience, who is they're conservative owners and conservative people. So, conservatives tend to pick conservatives. So I think Brendan Rodgers is a quite quiet, demure guy. He'll get on with his work. He's a really, really good coach, and I called him a world-class coach the other day. And of course, Twitter went crazy because that's what Twitter does. But I really do believe he's a world-class coach. You talk to players that have worked with Brendan Rodgers at Liverpool. I've spoken to players that work with him at Celtic, players that work with him now. And I know people at Leicester and who speak about him in the highest terms and say that he is an exceptional world-class coach. He's never coached me, so I can't say that I think he's X, Y, or Z. I can only go by what people who are in the industry have said about Brendan Rodgers. And it's universal. It really is. I don't get one person who says, I didn't get on with Rodgers. I didn't think he was particularly good. Everyone says the same thing, and that he is a kind of real player coach, that he gets into players' heads and he coaches aggressive systems. And that's attractive to me, Haider. I want a coach now that's going to take that and make Manchester United an aggressive unit. We should not be about one player. We should be about 11 every single week, every single game. No hero ball, no Hollywood football. We should be about winning games. That's how you win the title, whether you're Guardiola, Klopp, or even Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
And guys, we're going to finish on that note. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this with all your friends, retweet it on Twitter if you've got Twitter. And make sure that you give us a follow on @TF Masterclass. Give me a follow as well at Haider_Rubbani. Give Rob a follow at Rob_B. We'll see you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.